Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Hello, welcome back to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor Cochran. We've got another great show for you this week. Of course, this one's all about answering your garden questions. So when you're sending your questions in, make sure you tell me where you're from. We've got lots of people tuned in already. Big hello to Vanessa in Queensland. Wendy, where are you, Wendy? I can't keep up with the number of messages coming through suddenly. Jez Barnes in Tassie, Kerry McClure. Not sure where you are, Kerry. Where else? Wendy, you were in Melbourne. Look, you're all saying hello. It's great to have you with us. I'm here, of course, just to answer your garden questions. That's what it's all about. And we are doing it again, I suppose, at a little bit of a different time. So love to hear feedback as to how that works for you. It changes for everybody because, of course, in the West, it's 4 o'clock over here. And on the East Coast at the moment, it is 6 p.m., 6:03 p.m. Usually that means around about this time, David Van Berkel tends to have a glass of red wine in his hand and is sitting back with his feet up looking at the big screen. Of course, he will be joining us very soon, probably doing exactly that, I suspect, to talk to us about dahlias. And it's a great love of David's and mine. Now, the show is packed full of heaps and heaps of really good advice. That's what we're here to do. Shaylee's running the ship today. I've got a few things for you. We've got, of course, that fantastic gift voucher to go shopping at Garden Express. Remember, Garden Express 24/7. You can shop anytime and it's delivered direct to your door. It's a great thing about them. So this gift voucher will be fantastic. Now, send us through all of your questions. Remember, tell us where you are, state and city. And what else are we missing? Well, we'll have a great deal coming up for you with Garden Express very, very soon. In fact, let's go straight to David. Let's not hold off anymore. I wonder whether he has got that glass of red wine nearby.
Maybe not the feet up, Trev, but
love it, David. Well,
that's what happens when you live in a wine district, right?
Yeah. Well, what a nice place you live too. I've been in your garden, seen this magnificent house of yours, and of course, I've seen all the magnificent plants. And that last particular trip, also got the opportunity to go out to the farm, David, and we were looking at hippeastrums out there. But I know the other thing that you've got an equal passion for is dahlias.
Absolutely, like that's my first childhood memory is walking the dahlias, digging the dahlias. Probably my first gig was to drive a 1950s David Brown at 9 years old.
Wow.
And, struggled without the power steering, and that was dahlia harvest. So it goes way back for me, and I love them. That's
a tractor, by the way, folks, if you're not too sure. It's for a lot of us kids who grew up on the land, that was actually how we learned to drive, was usually on the tractor. And mine was a Massey Ferguson, so there you go.
Beautiful, mate. Yep.
So, David, dahlias, now we're coming into the period to be planting them, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So, we start our harvest over here in the East Coast. We can commence that probably late May. The frost usually kills them off, and they're starting to show their little eyes and shoots as we speak. In fact, our propagation house is full of tubers, and we've taken our first 1,000 cuttings already from there.
Right. Okay. Terrific. So, tell me about how you grow them, how you actually do it.
Okay, so we start with a tuber of I think we've got maybe 400-500 varieties, and we lay those up into a hot house. We've got heated beds, and we get in a little bit earlier than what the dahlia would do in the field or in your garden. And once they start to grow, we take a cutting with a bit of a heel of the crown of the tuber, and then we put that into a special prop mix, also in a bit of a heated environment. That'll create some roots for us, and we take 100,000 or so of those out into the field and spend a few weeks planting them, heaps of weeks preparing the ground, getting some good organics into the soil, watering systems, of course, all of that good farming stuff. grow them for about 8 months before we go into the harvest again.
It's an amazing process that you go through. Of course, the other thing that's happening all the time is you're looking at genetics, you're looking at the diversity of varieties, because dahlias come in a whole bunch of different flower types, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. There's probably 7 main styles of dahlias, from your small pompone ball looking things, cacti, decorative, and even now the dinner plates or giant decoratives, which are really, really beautiful. There's a few societies around. Sorry, Trevor. There's a few societies, National Dahlia Society, and they have sort of many enthusiasts who spend their time creating a lot of new cultivars, I suppose. And we work with them a little bit to bring new ones to market. Get a few from overseas as well. It's not something that we specialize in, because dahlia seedlings produce something like 10,000 different seedlings, and you've got to then prove them for a couple of years to make sure they're going to grow a good tuber. So we let the enthusiasts really take the ball on that one. Hybridizing, they're very specialized in what they do there.
When I think of flowers, and the perfect flower structure and symmetry and everything else, there's 2 that really stand out for me. Water lilies, always, spectacular flowers, generally completely perfect in their shape, and of course dahlias. And you were talking about the dinner plate size, but I got some beauties off you a couple of years ago, planted them out, and there's a red one. It's like a velvet red, a really deep red. It's this big. I'm not exaggerating. It's enormous when it comes into flower. So big that obviously you have to stake it to make sure that the flowers don't break off in strong winds. But it's just, they're incredible, and they're such good vase flowers too.
They're great vase flowers, and the beauty of a dahlia tuber is that it's always wanting to grow, and so the more you pick the flowers, the more stems it's going to shoot up, the more blooms that you're going to get. So as you said, you have to stake some of them, particularly with the big blooms. You can bunch them up a little bit closer. So if you've got a few extra pieces, or you've done your division after a couple of seasons, you can thicken them up a little bit, and then they'll self-support.
Now, just quickly for everybody who's listening in, you are the expert grower. What are the ideal growing conditions for dahlias, and do they need to be fed? What's the care?
They're pretty carefree, Trevor. They'll grow in really heavy soils, clay soils, red soils, sandy soils. They'll just stretch as a tuber and grow right down. I've seen tubers that are probably a bit over a foot long, and a little bit more elongated, as they just search for some water. So they're really quite simple. Feeding, nothing too heavy. Good organic soil is all it really needs. So chook manure is pretty much the only thing that we apply to them. If we want extra flowers, we do put some some more personalized fertilizer on for them, but they just don't need it.
Some of those high K fertilizers would obviously support the flowering, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it will just sort of shoot up more stems, give you a little bit of stem length as well. We don't usually apply that till the first flowers are on. It really pushes them along.
So when it comes to feeding, something like dynamic lifter for the home gardener is probably the ideal thing. The chicken pellets with a little bit of extra minerals in there, just to boost them along and support that growth as they take off. As far as position goes, full sun?
Absolutely full sun. Yeah, they'll tolerate a little bit of shade, but you'll get less flowers with the shade, and you can get a lot of stretch with the dahlia. It's already growing somewhere between 1 metre to some varieties 1.5 metres. So if you've got a little bit too much shade, you'll get these really lengthy stems, but not really a nice compact bush. So full sun, loads of water during that really hot summer. You're supporting a very fleshy stem. So, and if you want lots of flowers, you just need to give it water, and it tells you really quickly. The foliage will droop a little bit if you're a little bit behind on the water.
All right. Well, look, let's get to the deal, because you always come up with a great deal. This week, I think there's how many in this collection?
Well, there's 9 in this collection, Trevor. I'm going to cast my eyes sideways a little bit. I only opened the collection about 10 minutes ago when I took my first sip, and they've given the viewers something incredible: 40% off on 9 dahlias.
Wow! Now,
which actually saving of $40 as well.
I was going to say they're typically about sort of $10 to $15. These are big sort of nice, big, healthy tubers here that we're talking about. So 10 to 15 bucks. They're not 10 to 15 bucks. They're down from $98.10 to $58, 40% off.
I've had a couple of sips, mate. I can't even do the maths on what that is for a tuber, but
good grief.
It's crazy. But there's some beautiful colours in there. You know, there's probably half of the collection are the good old-fashioned favourites. You know, the tried and true, proven, high flowering varieties, such as My Love and Black Embers. Mariner's another beautiful one. And then there's a couple of new ones in there. So, I mean, I'd never heard of Bollywood till a couple of years ago. We got Bollywood Dancer. Kara's Heart. Purex is a beautiful new style with a doubled centre, but a single reflex pedal there on the back.
And Dragon's Blood.
Dragon's Blood, yes. Oh, yes. That's it's not quite that big giant, but that stunning velvety red that you talked about.
It's got a velvety red, yeah. It's a lovely one. So these are all fantastic. So people can basically jump online right now, go to gardenexpress.com.au, place their order. Do you have a lot of stock? Because I know we've copped a bit of criticism. A lot of people wanting to get stuff, and you've been selling out of the offers every single week, David. Are we going to have a lot of dahlias?
I need a bigger farm. There's a fair volume of the dahlias. You know, one of those things that grow really well for us, and of course, so many years of experience. We're pretty good with the dahlias, and unfortunately, we did sell out of some of the hippie collections last week. That's due to them being so popular, which is fantastic. So
yeah, I think more people who discover hippies, the better. I reckon. You and I, we're already sold. There's no doubt about it. But I think that is the next big trend when it comes to flowers. But you're not going to get two better kinds of flowering plants than hippeastrums and dahlias in a lovely home garden. They really are fabulous plants.
I think the dahlia is just, you know, there's a lot of nostalgia with the dahlia, particularly with the pommies. You know, a lot of people refer back to, you know, when Granddad grew them, and they're really a good filling plant. They really make your garden pop for 4 months of colour. And then your hippeastrums, well, they're just super special. And on that footage, I just want to thank the guys that came out with you when we looked at the farm. I went online and bought some of my own hippies once I saw that footage over the top. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. So.
No, it's one of those things when you get out onto a flower farm and you see them in flower the way they are. You'd have to be the worst cameraman in the world not to be able to capture the beauty of that. But look, it's always good also with the drones in the air, isn't it? You know, you can see the scale as you're walking across those paddocks during that story. You really get a scale of just how big the area is that you're farming.
I think that's something that we as farmers possibly, you know, forget because we're there every day and we're walking those fields and it just feels quite natural. But to see it in that thing, it really is an enormous project that the team undertakes every year. And, you know, that footage of the hippies was fabulous. The dahlia crop's 3 times that size, and it's be incredible for the team to come out and get some vision, because it would nearly be the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere to see that crop when it's flowering. So.
All right. Well, I will make sure we're out there, mate. I can't wait. We are getting overwhelmed with. We are really getting overwhelmed with lots and lots of questions coming through. So, mate, let's get that deal. It's available now. People need to jump online. Of course, the great thing about Garden Express, you can shop 24/7 from the comfort of your armchair, and you guys deliver it direct to the door.
Exactly, mate. It's so much fun. You just get carried away. It's better than watching TV. Is to shop through the store and all the things that we've got on offer. But the dahlias, this is the time. Planting in the next 5 to 6 weeks would be perfect to get your dahlias in the ground and enjoy a summer of colour.
40% off, David. That's I reckon I'd be making a phone call to Rowan and to Chloe and saying, guys, did you check your calculator? Are you sure you got this right? That's a super good deal.
I think that's why I've got a glass of wine in front of me, because they just put me up every time they put me in front of the office.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, listen, if it was me, of course, I wouldn't have the glass. If I saw that sort of deal, I'd be pulling the bottle out and going straight for the bottle.
No, we're fine, mate. I know there's a lot of product to move, so we're happy to do some good deals. And it's just so much fun, particularly on a Friday afternoon with a glass of wine, to sell some dahlias, for people to buy some dahlias, and to talk to you and all of the viewers, Trev.
David, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for your support of everything we do with the Garden Gurus Live. It's a really big thing. You're a family business. We're a family business. Of course, we're talking to families all over Australia, and all of them are telling me one thing at the moment. Hurry up and answer my question.
Yes, well, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you for your time.
All right, mate. No worries. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much. Let's get on to it because we do have lots and lots of questions. I'm going to fire up with Jeannie Napier. I know, Jeannie, you are here in Perth. I have fungi and gnats in my succulent mix. Will it do any harm when repotting? Jeannie, first of all, a lot of people have accused me of being a fungi. I try to be as fun as I can, but the fungi in the soil is going to be very good. It's actually a really nice natural thing, and a lot of fungi connect the roots to the nutrients. They're an essential part of the soil health. Now, the gnats are in there eating organics, so that's quite a normal thing, and it's not really a problem outdoors. It's if you bring them indoors, you might bring some gnats inside, and as I said, sometimes they'll pop up in your soup or maybe your glass of red wine and spoil the party a little bit. You don't really have any problems here at all. It's all really a sign that everything's just healthy. That's all it is. And if you want to get rid of the gnats, you can actually there's that product from Yates. It is called Gnat Barrier, I think it's called. I've got to remember now. But yeah, it's a fabulous thing, and you just put it across the top of the soil, and it's literally just a mineral, and it creates a barrier and stops them from laying their eggs or from coming back out. So there's a couple of options for you, Jenny. Okay, Albert from East Cannington. Now, I know we've got lots of questions coming in from all over Australia, but at the moment, we have a few flying in from WA, and they seem to have jumped in first. Albert in East Cannington, wondering about the theory to dig a hole and uplift the soil with all the goodness, double the width of the pot of a plant. What about if the roots have grown wider than the size of the dug soil in the future? Won't the roots get exposed with poor soil and we'll start to see issues like lack of nutrients? In my case, I planted camellias in quite alkaline sandy soils. I dug the hole twice the width of the pot, used the camellia potting mix to backfill to give them a good start. In the first year, they thrived well. Second year, you're seeing issues, as in the photos that we have here. And that is, you can see that there are some mineral nutrient issues there. It's showing up in what we call the chlorotic or chlorosis of the leaf. Now, this is an indication they are lacking minerals, and you are absolutely 100% right. The idea of getting the width of the hole, the planting hole, and putting good soil in there twice the size of the root system is to get it growing fast. But once it hits the normal natural soil, it will need to have supplements with nutrients. There's no easy way around the outside of that. So using a camellia, an azalea, or flowering plant potting mix, fertilizer with all the minerals and nutrients in it right now is really important. Now sometimes, of course, if you've got an alkaline soil and you raise that as an issue, that can be quite problematic for those plants that really do require the acidity. One of the things that happens when you look at the pH scale is that if you move from the center, which is 7, and you go one way or the other, some minerals get locked up in the soil. They're there, but they're just not able to be taken up by the plant. So trying to keep your pH neutral is really important. Now, you can buffer the pH by putting organics into the soil. So composting, lots and lots of compost is a good way to do that. You can, if you're, for example, alkaline, you can add acidic fertilizers. So you could be putting in sulfate of potash, and the sulfur and the sulfate is going to acidify the soil a little bit and make it more, I suppose, amenable for the plant to be able to take it up and to be able to use all those nutrients. Now, I've got to tell you, if all else fails, you're probably better to grow them in large tubs. So it depends on how alkaline the soil is. But hopefully that explains. The idea of the twice as wide is putting in some really good soil, getting those roots to continue to spread away from the root ball and start to move fast through the soil. If you've got nutrients in the in the poorer quality soil around the outside, they'll just continue on into that, absorbing those nutrients because the plant at this point is growing strongly. That's the whole idea behind it. Christine Rankin, hello. You're in Stirling, of course, here, and good afternoon to you. Your husband wants to take a third off the top of your native frangipani. It's blocking light from your solar panels in the mid to late afternoon during summer. Is now the right time to do that? It is about to flower. Definitely do not cut the plant back at this point in time. Enjoy the flowers. In a month's time, they'll be finished. Then feel free to cut it back. And the funny thing about the native frangipani is you can cut them back really, really hard and then continue to cut them, and they'll end up being like a little bushy ball on the top of the plant. So don't be scared to cut them back, and now's not the time to do it because you want to enjoy the flowers first, and then after it's finished flowering, give it a good prune. George Duncan, here we go. We're heading all over the country. You are in Adelaide. Hello. Can you tell me how big the root span is on Little Gem Magnolia? Okay, I can. I can tell you that the Little Gem Magnolia roots tend to be 5 times the height of the plant across the top of the soil. So they do have quite a vigorous root system. So a lot of people make the mistake of planting them quite close to fences or walls, and as they get big and mature, they start to push the fence over a little bit. So give them a bit of room. I remember when they were first put out and they were being sold as something that gets to about 4 meters. Mine at home are, well, the best part of probably 6 to 7 meters in height, which, you know, really gives you a true indication as to, you know, the nature of these trees. Little Gem is a variety or cultivar of what's known as the Bull Bay Magnolia. And the Bull Bay Magnolia is a very large tree. They grow to sort of somewhere around about 15 meters with a 15-meter spread. Your Little Gem's not going to do that. It's got a more compact upright size. But the purpose of telling you that is that they do have a decent root system and you do need to be a little careful. I hope that helps. Jody Wilson, you always join us, and I always think I've got to check out where New Mexico is in New South Wales. What can I do to get rid of mealybugs? Okay, now they're getting into your agapanthus and other plants. You've got a very large country garden and you're in drought again. All right, Jody, this is a really common problem. I was looking at my frangies at home and I've got a little bit of it as well. And if you're not sure, if you're looking at your frangipani foliage and you see this kind of crinkle in the foliage as it's coming out, it's an indication that down in the heart of that growth stem, there'll be lots and lots of mealybug in there. They tend to get into frangipani roots and into that growth tip. Now, how do you get rid of them? There's a number of different treatments that you can use. Now, you can drench them, which is one thing. Always drench them with a systemic. So systemic systemic pesticide, insecticide is the only way to go. But you can also get some granules. So there's a couple of different products that you can buy that are granulated. And when you shake them over and around the outside, it's taken up through the roots. And this will kill all of the mealybug in the root system. So head into your local garden centre is my advice. That's the best thing to do, and say, look, I'd really prefer the granulated form if I can. If they don't have it, don't worry. Just ask them for the systemic. Okay, systemic meaning it is absorbs through the foliage, absorbs through the roots, it moves through the sap, and these guys are what we call sap suckers. When they suck on the sap and it's got this chemical in there, it will kill them off. And unfortunately, it's a dreadful pest. And it's one of the only things that you can do to really get control of them. There's not too many other natural controls that you can use, I'm afraid. Okay, Liz Shuman, you're in Castle Hill in New South Wales. Hello. There are weeds that are popping up everywhere. I can't seem to tackle it with just hand picking it out. I would like some help on how to banish these suckers. I've tried using an all-purpose weed kill. Unfortunately, it hasn't done the trick. The two are, you've got bittercress and the large Amazon sword type aquatic plant. Now, this is interesting that you are getting an aquatic plant popping up in your garden. I would love to have a look at those. Maybe you could send us a photo next time, Liz. But just to qualify this quick, the best way to control these really is a systemic. And there's some really good work being done at the moment to replace the old glyphosate technology with some new, much safer weed controls. There's probably no contact spray weed control. So things like pelargonic acid, etc., by themselves are probably not going to do anything other than be systemic. Okay, really important. Absorbs through the leaves, goes down, kills the root, takes them out. And if it's in amongst garden beds, you're going to need to hand paint that on with a brush. But it's worth it. You only need to contact the leaves once, and it'll do the job. Okay, let's go to Tassie. Hello, Jez. Jez Barnes joins us. You're just south of Hobart. You've got many Hoyas, mostly indoors. You give them light, etc., but they don't have flowers. Is there anything else I would recommend to promote them? Yes. Okay. High K fertilizer is really important. Make sure that all of your nitrogen. So when you look at your fertilizer on the analysis on the bag, it'll say NPK. What you want is a very low N and a high K. The K will promote flower. The N will promote growth. Hoyas, give them lots and lots of nitrogen. They'll just continue to grow and not flower. And I think that's what's going on for you. So take a look at the fertilizer you're using. It'll make the world of difference to the result you get. And it doesn't matter whether it's indoors or outdoors. It's probably the same issue you've got. So you need to reduce that. And also back off the water a little bit. Just stress them just a little bit. That's the other thing. That triggers a lot of flowering. Hopefully that helps, Jez Barnes. Lynn Goodall, hello. I'm not sure where you are, Lynn. You didn't tell us that, but can you tell me why the passion fruit plant has bubbly leaves? I can. So you can see that. Very common problem. Now, this occurs for two reasons. One is thrip damage as the new foliage is evolving. You can see there's a bit of yellowing coming through there too, and there's a bit of a nutritional issue going on here that needs to be repaired. Now, passion fruit are really vigorous growers, but they require lots of nutrients. So you do need to feed them. And again, when they're young and you want to get shape and big lush foliage, feed them with a high nitrogen fertilizer. That will do the job. Once they've got to full size, let them just sort of back off with the fertilizer, let them settle down, and then use a high K fertilizer. So these are generally known or sold as fruit and flower promoter fertilizers. So that's what you want to be using, and that will make the world of difference with regards to the growth that you're going to get and then subsequent crops. Okay, Marcia Blake, you're in WA. Consider gifting a Hass avocado to your sister. Would it do okay and fruit well enough in a pot, or is it best in the ground? Would it be okay with yearly trims to keep it smaller in scale? Yes. I've got some avocados in wine barrels, half wine barrels. Do really well. The dwarf varieties are better, and there's a number of them. So you can take a look at that. You have to understand that if you've got contained root system, it'll contain the growth of the foliage as well. So if it's in a container, keep the root system small. The size of the plant will be small, and don't be scared to prune it. Just don't prune them now because they're coming into flower. So you want to have your fruit, but as soon as they're finished fruiting, give them a feed, then harvest your fruit, give them a feed, and give them a good water, and give them a little bit of a prune, and you'll find that that'll encourage a sort of a denser, bushier growth, and it'll look fantastic, Marcia. Hopefully that's going to help you out a little bit. Marianne McCarthy, you're in Southwell. Just put apricot and peach trees in, and seedless grapes, and they're all started blooming. First time growing them. What should I do? I think it is to treat them well and get them to grow strongly. I think that's what you're asking me, Marianne. And the answer is, if they're just first, second year trees, feed them. Give them a good feed. These plants, when they're producing all that flower, all that new growth as they're coming out of being dormant, they really need a very, very good feed just to support and that continuation of growth, because they're taking that goodness out of the ground. You've got to replace it. You've just got to put it back in. What we do in home gardens is extremely intense farming. There's probably no greater intensive farming than what we do. So if we're going to make it regenerative, that is, we're going to have this quality sort of movement, keep taking the foliage that falls off, any of the leftover scraps, etc., compost them, put them back into the soil, and keep adding nutrients, minerals into the soil, and they'll do really, really well, and you'll never have a problem. It's just we've got to keep replenishing the soil nutrient and microbes as well. All right, Waylon Pukora, I hope I got that right. You're in Perth. Send us some photos. All right, let's have a look. This is my dwarf Maya lemon tree, planted 5 months ago in a 500mm by 500mm large pot. Now, you've used quality potting mix. You're in Golden Bay. You've used black marble fertilizer, plucked flowers off as instructed by the budding staff, and allowed the roots to establish. Apparently, my concern is the leaves are being eaten by something. Now, you actually have two problems here. You've got a mineral deficiency. So this is a really unusual one. This isn't the normal ones we talk about. You can see the way the leaves are curling down like this. This is an indication that you're lacking manganese, which is a bit unusual because it should be in the fertilizer and also in the soil. And you do need to be using a citrus fertilizer for this particular plant. This is one of those ones where I'd probably say a controlled release. So take a look at the one that comes from the guys at Trevor. It's ideal for this particular situation. And don't be scared to give them a pretty decent feed. Citrus are gross feeders. They really do need that. When it comes to the curly leaves, so curling like that's one thing, but when you get this twisted curl, you've got something else, and that is citrus leaf miner. Now, a little bit of horticultural oil, so you could be looking at something along the lines of pest oil or eco oil or any of those. Obviously, white oil is the most common one. Spraying it over the foliage now, the new foliage as it's emerging, will make the world of difference to controlling that particular pest. All right, Matthew Naglashis, again, you've sent us some photos. 2 lemon myrtle trees, one in a pot, one in the ground, 20 metres apart, wondering what are the spots on the one with the brown edges and the brown edges on the other. The funny thing about these, when you actually have a look at these photos, you can see there's a commonality here, and they're both quite yellow. Now, there should be a dark green colour. So in both instances, these trees are not growing fast enough. They're really not. They've not got enough nutrient. Now, I've got a tree that's probably 4 meters tall now at home, and I do feed this a lot, and it's because it is such a vigorous grower. Plus, I'm harvesting the leaves all the time. You asked the question about can you use the leaves for tea? Yes, you can. What you're going to find though is you're not getting all the goodness, and that's probably an important thing. So feeding now is a really important thing. Now, this is a native plant, but you don't need to go and use a native fertilizer in this particular instance. This will handle a general fertilizer, an all-round, all-purpose garden fertilizer quite well. But feed them. Don't be scared to feed them. We're moving into the growing season. Give them a feed now. Give them a feed again in about 6 to 8 weeks' time. Give them another feed prior to Christmas, and you will end up with a beautiful dark green foliage tree that's probably double the size that it is at the moment. So hopefully that helps. Vinette Ainsberg, hello. You're in Balladura, back here in WA. When's the best time to prune some young, lanky proteas? And how do I do this? Can they be pruned quite heavily? You don't want to cut proteas back too hard. You probably want to take them back, if they're a bit lanky, to about half the stretched out stem size. So you want to make sure you've got leaves on there. If you're pruning now, most of your proteas should actually be in flower. So the leucospermums and leucodendrons should all be coloured up. It depends on what the varieties are that you've got. But my suggestion would be that if they're not in flower, they don't have any buds coming, then don't be scared to prune them right at the moment. This is a good time of the year to get them into shape. And just on that, don't be scared to prune proteas. It's actually the biggest mistake you make is not pruning them. So don't be scared. Denise Pierce is in Ipswich, Queensland. Hi, Denise. Thanks for joining us. How do you make Poinciana's flower, please? The tree is big, but it only gives 2 flowers. Okay, you can lean an axe against the tree. Now, the tree will sense the axe, realise that you're going to hit the axe against the tree, and this could trigger flowering. I don't think that's really going to work, but it's a bit of a fun sort of theory, isn't it? No, look, you know what? Poincianas, they will flower, and they will flower prolifically once they are in the right space. So the root system's down, the canopy's developed, the tree's happy. Feeding them high nitrogen fertilizers, giving them lots of water at the beginning of the growing season, that can sometimes affect the intensity of the flower. You want it to be as dry as possible without the tree going into shock. So if you can keep them dry, you don't need to feed them. Once they're mature, don't feed them, and it'll produce lots and lots of flowers. The old joke about the axe has actually got some element of truth to it. So if you were to damage the bark, and this is often done with copper nails being nailed into the base of the tree, depending on how big the trunk is, you can get into a situation where the tree thinks it's being attacked by borers. And as a consequence, it then starts producing lots and lots of flowers and subsequently seeds later on. So there's a little bit to consider there, but think it through. Maybe give us a bit of feedback as to where you think it might be going wrong. James Andre Betancourt, I hope I got this right. You're in Geelong, in Victoria. I've been putting mulch on a garden bed. Is it really needed to remove the old mulch? Absolutely not. Leave the old mulch in. Put new mulch over the top of the old mulch. That'll compost down any of the larger particles that are left over. So I think you'll find that is probably all you need to worry about. Now, we've got some more photos from my garden for the plant of the week, so maybe we should jump into that, and I'll just talk you through what's in flower at the moment. Every time I pull in my driveway, I've got this magnificent fragrance coming through, and it is the jasmine, the winter jasmine, which is just an absolute treat at the moment, and particularly at night time. So that's a good addition. This isn't that, by the way. This is actually one of those new varieties of Geraldton wax. It's coming out of the breeding program from Kings Park over here in the west. The wax flowers are magnificent this year. There is one that is a real highlight, and I wanted to show it to you, but I don't have any with me at the moment, so I will talk about it. You'll see it on the show, actually. It's called Local Hero, and it's just this incredibly compact one, and it's very late, so it's still only in bud at the moment. So when they burst, those flowers burst, we'll show you some of that a bit further down the line. Regardless, they are all fabulous. Now, this one here, you'll know these hellebores. They are just magnificent in my garden. This is the ultimate, I reckon there's two ultimate under shade plants. Hellebores are one of them. So if you've got a big shady tree, even if they're deciduous, particularly if they're deciduous, plant these en masse underneath them. Don't be scared to also use things like, and I've been sort of really impressed with the flower coming from my kaffir lilies. They're just such a spectacular plant. So both of those perfect for the shady spot. Let's have a look. What else have we got in that mix? Okay, vegetables. All right, I've got a lot of this at the moment. I've got a lot of different types of what are broccoli. So this is a cross between broccoli and cauliflower. So really interesting varieties. I've got the golden one this time. I had the purple last year, and I can't tell you why they're different, except for they are delicious. So they're little highlights in the veggie garden. I do love bringing a bit of colour in a different way. And this one here, so this is a bit different again. So a lot of fruit coming through, but this is a dwarf white peach. And it's one of those collections that came out of Fleming's. I have a lot of Fleming's fruit trees in my garden, and you'll find them in your garden centres now. They are in flower, they look magnificent, and of course they're about to set fruit, and that fruit is a really high quality white peach, albeit a little bit of a challenge in my garden to keep the fruit fly away. And this one here, okay, so it's a little bit different, but we've got a lot of tea trees in around the creek, and they're all just coming through at the moment. The leptospermums, they are fabulous. This one's called Cardwell. It's a beautiful weeping white form. It literally flowers from the beginning of the branch all the way to the end of the branch at the moment, as you can see here. And they weep with the weight of the flowers. So it's a magnificent variety. If you're into native plants, if you've got wet areas and you've got shady areas, think about Leptospermum Cardwell, really beautiful plant. Okay, I reckon that's just about it for the plants from my garden. So let's get into your garden questions again. Jody Malone, what plants would grow nicely under standard roses? Well, I just talked about things growing under shade. Well, there's a good example again. If you think about some of the flowering plants, the kaffir lily is a really good example of something that's very different, would do well in that environment. The other one that you might want to think about, of course, and we just talked about them, but it's hellebores. They really are lovely in that environment. Or you can just get yourself a whole bunch of annual flowers, and there's just about everything you could ever think of. Things, cinerarias, if you love the blues, if you love the pinks, and maybe you want to be thinking about putting some petunias and things like that down now. So there's a lot. Just remember, roses are incredibly vigorous plants. They produce lots and lots of flowers. They require lots of goodness and energy out the soil. The more you plant around the base of them, the more competitive it is. So you've got to make sure you ramp up your feeding if you're going to go and fill in the garden beds below them with other plants, because otherwise your roses might start to deteriorate in that competition for the nutrients. Vanessa Morton in Queensland, how can I grow gardenias from cutting? Really easy. Gardenias grow from tip cuttings. It's not the time to be doing it at the moment, Vanessa, because most of them are coming into flower. So if they've got buds on the stems, let them flower first, then go through and literally you get a stem about that, what's that, 50 mil? And you should leave 2 to 4 leaves on the very top. The stem clean, cut flat on the bottom, little bit of rooting hormone, so generally the gel's ideal. Pop them in a sandy, maybe a 50-50 coarse river sand and cocoa peat mix. Keep it moist, maybe even like a plastic bag over the top of the pot. Put in, say, 20 or 30 cuttings. I'll guarantee you'll end up with 10 to 20 if you follow my advice. Hopefully that helped you, Vanessa. Okay, Billy Joe McDougall, you're on the Sunshine Coast. My eggplant is really healthy with many flowers but no fruit. Any suggestions? Yeah. You know what? I would be growing a pot of borage nearby, right? You need to be attracting bees in. Eggplants require the right temperature and they require good pollination. Now, bees should be pretty active in your area, but if you're not getting enough, bring in some bright coloured flowers and that will do the job. So whether it be borage, which is blue flowers, or you go for marigolds, which are gold flowers, obviously, one thing you're going to end up with is a lot of bees coming in and they'll do the job on the pollination for you. Or if you're really patient, you can get a little fine brush. You can go and brush all the flowers, take the pollen around, brush it, and you'll force a set of fruit. So hopefully that helps. It is, a lot of it is actually weather dependent. So you've got to have right humidity and right warmth. But we're coming into the season where they're going to do it naturally anyway, sooner or later. Wendy Butler, you're in Melbourne, in Victoria. I'm revamping my outdoor area. I've pulled up fake grass, good, and we'll be removing the brick borders, volcanic rock borders, mulch, and a small tree. Want to lay pebbles or gravel in the area and garden edging, level with grass and concrete. I need advice on the following. What size pebbles will be best for this area? Gee whiz, it gets down to what you really like. Round and angular pebbles, that's up to you again. I would suggest that flat pebbles are always best, but it gets down to personal preference. And how deep do you need to lay the level of pebbles so they don't sink into the soil when walking? You are going to have to put something under the pebbles if you're going to walk over the top. Otherwise, you are going to compact them into the soil. That's really a very important thing. So a layer of weed mat, your pebbles on top. I don't know whether you saw that story Nev did recently on the Garden Gurus. You can pull this up on our website or our YouTube channel. But he actually laid some pebbles, a beautiful pebble pathway, showed you how to do it. It's absolutely brilliant bit of advice. And it was using those Jack's pebbles that you buy in, I think, 10 kilo bags down at your local Bunnings store. They're fantastic. And it was a really good story. So maybe follow that guide. Jump on our website, Jack's Landscaping Pebbles. Maybe that's what you should pop in and let's see what comes up. But you will see that story there. It's recent on the Garden Gurus. I don't know if any of you saw it. Let me know if you did. Okay. Matthew Neglitch, I hope I got that right. Sorry, mate. We purchased a Thai constellation earlier in the year. It has roots starting to come out the bottom of the pot. Is it due to an upsize of pot? Is it due for an upsize of pot? Yes, it probably is. Even with our first new leaf halfway through and uncurling in Melton West in Melbourne. Matt, yes, absolutely. Definitely. Don't be scared to do it. It's good for them. They do like being root bound, these plants. But here's the thing: if you do put it into a slightly bigger pot, you're going to end up with bigger foliage and more of it. So yeah, I wouldn't be scared to pot it up. It doesn't need to be a much bigger increase, just a small increase, and then that transfer. Be gentle as you're doing it. Obviously, it's just kicking off and getting growing now. So it's really early too. So you've done well. Paul Margaret in Victor Harbour in South Australia have sent us a photograph. Let's have a look at what we've got here. And oh, okay, there we go. Just wondering if you can help with my orange tree. Got a problem with the leaves and the fruit always yellows and drops off. It's the citrus time of the year. This is when we get all of our citrus questions, because this is when all the problems come through. There's three things going on. One is they've been producing lots and lots of fruit. They're now in cold conditions, so they're not metabolizing super well. And three is that if you haven't been feeding them properly, you are going to see it showing in the foliage and the health of the foliage, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So you need to be getting yourself a really good citrus fertilizer. The biggest mistake people make is they don't feed them enough. They really are hungry trees. And you think about the amount of fruit that they produce. All of that fruit, all that goodness comes out of the soil. You've got to be replacing it. It just doesn't automatically replace. You can do it through adding compost in. Of course, you have to be putting those minerals in. Those minerals that we get that are good for our bodies, that are essential for healthy plant growth, they're not made. Then the soil doesn't make them, compost doesn't make them. They are things that were laid upon the planet. Basically, they are space dust. They have come down, and they come down in layers. And that's why, that's a really important thing for us to understand, is that we have to be replacing that, because we are intensively farming our gardens, and those plants, they use it. Particularly if we take it out then and we don't put it back in through good compost, we end up in a situation where we've got a real problem. So, all right, let's have a bit of a look here. Let's go to Adelaide. Judy Hayter. Hello, Judy. Love the show. And thanks so much for watching us and supporting us, Judy. That's great. My question is, my son's purchased a property in the Adelaide Hills near Meadows. There's an avocado tree which is laden with fruit, which is early, so that's good. They're like rocks at this stage, and they should be. When is the right time to pick? He's been told once they fall, it'll only take a week to ripen. This hasn't been the case to date. The avocado has smooth skin. It does sound like a very early season avocado. Mine are only just producing flowers at the moment. And really, we picked the last few of them from the last crop only a few weeks ago. So I'm assuming that this is a very, very early season variety. The trick with avocados is wait till the first one falls off, and then don't be scared to occasionally pick the larger fruit. When you see them, you know how big avocados get. Once they get to full size, you can pick them and they will ripen. It might take 5 to 6 days, but they'll ripen and they'll do the job beautifully. All right, we have 11 minutes to go. I want to get through as many of these questions as I can for you. Jeff Green, you're in Gladstone Park in Victoria. I've got a cherry tree, it's about 4 years old, and whilst it greens up every year, it's yet to bear any fruit. Promised myself that if there's nothing this season, then out it comes next year, as I can't spare the space it occupies in my backyard without being fruitful. Any advice will be greatly appreciated. Cherries need cross-pollinating. I suspect you do not have a cross-pollinator nearby. It's a really interesting thing, but you do need to have them cross-pollinating. There is also a thing, so my cherry trees in my home garden didn't produce fruit until they were 5 years old. So it depends on the age of your tree as well. But once they start fruiting, they'll never stop. So maybe look at planting around the base some bright, colourful annuals to try and attract some bees in as much as you possibly can. Dion VH is in SA. Hello. Hi. When is scaping lawn time? When is scaping lawn time for South Australia? Thanks. I think you mean scalping. Yeah, maybe scalping. I think you're talking about verti mowing. And really, look, I verti mowed a section of my lawn a little earlier. I did it for a story, and then we went and got a frost a week later, and I'm full of regret because it's going to take it a bit longer for it to recover. You really want to be in the full growth period. So you want to be moving at least October, November before you go and verti mow or core the lawn. It's really important you make sure that the lawn's growing as quickly as you can before you go ripping out all that thatch, which is what I think we're talking about. Kerry McClure from Rollystone, that's over here in the west. Looking at buying a lime tree, what would I recommend? I don't think you can go past the Tahitian limes. They are absolutely fantastic. I've got a few different types of limes, but the one I'm most impressed with is Tahitian, so I would recommend. And I'm in the hills too, so that might help you as well. Fiona Hadley, hello. I've been very busy with wildlife rescues this week. What's the best way to keep mites out of my mealworm tubs? I didn't know. That was I don't know. I've not seen mites get into mealworm tubs before. really got a lot of experience in that space. I would think you're right, though. You've said, I'm thinking the horticultural sticky tape. Yeah, I suspect you're right. You know, if you're in a nursery and you're trying to control mites, you'd use the yellow sticky traps and the mites will go to that before they'll go to anything else. But might seek a little bit more advice on that. That's got to be a pretty darn good question, that one. That's got me a little puzzled as well. All right, we have finished for today's show. I know everybody's got a big weekend ahead of them. There's a lot going on, and we all need to get into the garden this time of the year. It is the best time of the year. This week's lucky winner of the $50 gift voucher from our friends at Garden Express is, I think it's James Andreas Bettencourt. I hope I got that right. Putting mulch and removing the old mulch. No, you don't have to do it, but you do have to put mulch down. One of the biggest things that we've got at the moment is weeds germinating through all of our gardens. Putting mulch down will wipe those weeds out really quickly. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It is a little punchier. We've certainly had some pretty good numbers joining us throughout this, but we might be looking at starting a little early next week. So we'll take a look at that. I will be in New South Wales next week. Hopefully enjoying some warm weather, because I know it's been quite warm over there. But I'll be in Sydney, so I'll look forward to catching up with some people whilst I'm in Sydney. And I will be joining you from Sydney whilst Shaylee holds the fort here in very wet, cold WA. It's been a very, very bleak week for us, but all this rain is a very good thing for the gardens. So that is great. Okay. What else have I got to talk to you about before we go? If there's any questions that we missed from today's show, don't worry, I'll answer them next week for you. We are obviously back next week with another show. Shaylee will put up the exact start date for you. We don't think it's very fair that we have David Van Berkel having to sit there with his glass of wine and watch the whole show this time of the evening in Melbourne. We think it might be better to get him up bright and early, which he does love as well. If you want to watch any more from this, you can obviously watch it from our Facebook page. If you want more information or advice, our gardengurus.tv, thegardengurus.tv website is an amazing resource. And if you want to watch lots of videos, of course, thegardengurus.tv on YouTube, our YouTube channel, is a really good resource. And don't forget, of course, we've got the Garden Gurus spring season running right now on Channel 9. If you're in New South Wales or Queensland, you'll find it on 9 Life. Everywhere else in the country, it is 9 and 9 now. And of course, that is at 4:30 p.m. on Saturdays. And I think it's playing on 9 now during the week as well. There's a lot going on. It's a busy time of the year. I'm Trevor Cochrane. Thank you so much for joining us. Big thanks to Shaylee and Way, who's disappeared. He was helping today, and they've done a great job. Hope you enjoyed the show. Look forward to seeing you again real soon. See you later.